Friends, hello, and welcome to this episode of Making It Up, the conversation series where two writers just, sit down and shoot the shit for about a half hour, 45 minutes. And we always tell a little story at the end that we just make up on the spot. And sometimes it's a disaster, and sometimes it's sublime. Most of the times it's something in between. And I'm recording this at the end of August, which means this is coming out in October, which is great because this is a good mood podcast. Because on the show today, I had author Lindy Ryan. So Lindy is an award-winning author, anthologist, and short film director whose books and anthologies have received starred reviews from Publishers Weekly, Booklist, and Library Journal. In addition to some of the dark, scary shit that she writes, she also writes sweet seasonal romance under the pseudonym Lindy Miller. It's funny, when I was talking to her, she said when October hits, when fall hits, that's when her sweet side comes out, and that's when she starts writing romance. And it's kind of dark stuff a lot of the rest of the year, but she's she's a current author in residence at Rue Morgue and a columnist at Book Trib. And Shelf Awareness described her as, or declared her a champion for women's voices in horror, which I love. So we had a fantastic conversation. This was one of these conversations where we didn't spend too much time talking about her individual books, although I will say she's got her most recent release is titled Another Fine Mess, which is part of her Bless Your Heart series. And just early next year, she's coming out with Dollface, which looks amazing, and she describes it as a 90s slasher book. And she's also a Bram Stoker finalist. So that's a big deal. The Stoker Award is Horror Writers of America's annual awards that they give out. So to be a finalist is a big deal. So we talked, like I said, not so much about her books, but we talked a lot about craft. This was a craft heavy discussion, very free flowing. If you are interested in conversations about points of view, POVs in book, this is the conversation for you because we delve into that. We also just talked about, how we perceive characters, how we perceive dark writing, thrillers and horrors versus how others perceive our writing, things that inspire us. She's definitely a 90s person, so you can see she's very excited about the upcoming release of Dollface, which sounds amazing. So yeah, very, very craft heavy discussion, and that's kind of when I'm in my zone. I love to compare notes because I feel like I always learn when I'm talking to these other authors, because they might do something wildly different than me. And one thing that struck me was her ability through different books, to approach it from different points of view, different tenses, going from multi-POV, third person past, to singular point of view, first person present. That's amazing. I feel like I do what I'm best at, and it's hard for me to stray from that. If I started thinking about multiple points of view, where everyone had kind of more or less equal time, and you have to make sure all of these narrative arcs for these individual characters not only work individually, but intertwine and work collectively. That's some fucking hard shit, man. There's no doubt about it. That is a challenge. So hats off to her. She's got a ton of books out there, so she clearly knows what she's doing. You're going to like this one, folks, and especially if you're an aspiring writer. Like I said, it's a craft-heavy discussion, which I think you'll find entertaining. This is my conversation with Lindy Ryan. So a couple things I know. I just quickly jumped on your Instagram, and I'm like, okay, the two things we have in common immediately is, one, we were at the Columbus Book Festival together. But I
saw you from afar. But it was, as you know, so many people and so much going on that I didn't get a chance
they said like 40,000 people.
I know it was crazy. I think all of them were in one of my panels. We had to like lock the door and kick people out. And then there was a back door. They started coming up a stairwell. It was nuts.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's, but it's also very like, it's so nice. You're like, oh, all these people read.
I
And
know it was a
I
lot of
don't know
fun.
why that should surprise me, but when they're in the flesh and all these people who are just so excited about books and authors, it's very life affirming in its own
It's
way.
really sad though when you read the stats and it's like 20% of reading rates are down, or whatever. Like
Right.
people just aren't reading anymore.
I know.
Finn, sorry, my dog.
Well, so this is the other thing we have in common. We both have golden retrievers. So
Oh, aren't they the
my
best?
my golden Scully is knocked out on the floor right next to me, so she might emerge at some point. But yes, it's my first golden. So she's been, yeah, it's love at first sight.
Oh, I know. They're the best. Mine is Finn. He's a service dog. He's not wearing his vest, obviously. We're at home. He's off the clock. So he travels with me. He was in Columbus, but Columbus was so extraordinarily hot
It was
um,
gross, yeah.
that he didn't. It was super gross and hot. And then we had that insane like tsunami that
Right,
blew
right,
across
right,
Copiat and
right.
then it left. I'm trying to see where he went. He's
But
like,
so
oh
he
my God. He
travels with
just,
you? So
everywhere, everywhere.
like flights and stuff like that?
We don't fly very often.
Okay, so you drove to
But
Columbus.
yeah, I'm about probably 9 hours from Columbus. I drive everywhere because my husband usually goes with me everywhere too. So, but
Okay.
like we're going to South Dakota next month and we're gonna fly. So the dog is gonna not fly because he's 120 pounds. I don't know how large your golden is,
Oh,
but
she's
mine is
about half of
humongous.
that.
Yeah. So he needs his whole space and
Right. The extender belt on
yeah, he's not flying size, absolutely. And my
That's so
husband's like
funny.
6'2", so he's not really flying size either. So
Okay.
we try
Okay.
not to.
So you're
But
you're on the East Coast.
I am currently on the East Coast. We are moving back to the Pacific Northwest at the end of the year.
Oh,
So
nice.
can't wait to get off the East Coast. But I mean it's
Yeah.
great here. It's just I spent most of my adult life has been on the West Coast and so being on the East Coast is different. But I do
What
love it here.
what's the impetus for the move back?
To leave the East Coast. I don't
So
really
so
know.
just
We
it's
just
totally
yeah.
lifestyle, not
Yeah.
anyone's careers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we it's family too. We both work from home.
Yeah.
And I teach for Rutgers, but I haven't taught on campus since
Yeah, I was
before
wondering.
COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, so now
Wow.
that I'm off campus, I'm free and then he's home, so we're both free, but we've got a lot of family in Northern California, although I don't want to live in Northern California, so we're gonna go
Yeah.
probably up to Portland.
Oh, nice.
But
Beautiful.
I
Yeah.
lived there. My son was born in Portland, so I did live there for a couple of years,
Oh, yeah.
many years ago.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and there's a kinship with Portland for sure, in terms of lifestyle and attitude, and it's
yeah,
it's a very cool place. Well, that's
well, Boulder's a
excellent.
cool place because I was there for about a year and a half. I had
Oh,
an
wow.
apartment right off of 36,
Oh, yeah.
like right when you take the left to go to the airport.
Right,
There was my
right.
apartment was right there. So spent a lot of
Okay.
time down at the Pearl area
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that mall that's out there.
Pearl Street
I don't,
Mall.
yeah. So good
Yeah.
times in Boulder for
Uh,
sure, but too landlocked for me. I don't know how you do it.
yeah. Well, I grew up in LA actually, so I think I had my fill of the ocean. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm
That's not
curious.
a thing.
I'm I'm curious. Growing up, were you a creative kid? Were you a natural storyteller, and this is what you wanted to do, or you kind of fell into it?
Well, I was definitely a kid who always had her nose stuck in books
Uh,
growing up. I mean, I was like the Goosebumps girl of my elementary school. So,
yep.
uh, definitely, I mean, and I was definitely the type writing my stories and my terrible teenage angsty poetry, all
Uh-huh.
through high school. So yes, although I didn't start really writing fiction I went academic, I'm a professor, so I publish and write nonfiction and,
Right.
academic crap all the time. And then I moved into fiction, into romance, and wrote some Hallmark screenplays, and then horror just felt like the like the natural next step.
Right.
So but that's like me through and through. I'm definitely like one of the spooky kids of,
Yeah. Yeah.
by
Well,
nature. So
where we could be related maybe. One of my crowning achievements is I have a short story that is in one of the Goosebumps anthologies, and I was like so excited that I got accepted in there. And I remember giving it. My daughter was 13 at the time, and I gave it to her to edit before I sent it off, and she would like just circle things and say, "You can do better than this," and
oh,
it was great, and
oh,
she was totally right too. She was completely right. But yeah, I always gravitated to the dark things, like not in morbid way, but almost a Disney haunted house kind of fun way. Halloween, of course, is massive, and I do a big thing every year. Are you a Halloween person?
oh yeah, you see my assistant back there
Oh,
in the
I
corner.
do
Yeah.
now. Yeah, he's
Um,
he's a little out of focus, but I see the skeleton.
I just put up my fall decorations last weekend. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I was a much bigger Halloween person when my son was younger.
Of
Both of our
course.
kids went off. So he's not home anymore. So I'm not making any homemade costumes. And we get zero trick-or-treaters where we are because we live in a retirement community where we are the youngest people here. So the Halloween culture does not exist where I'm at, which
Yeah.
but traditionally, yes, very big Halloween. But I think like the 90s had the best Halloween, like not scary, but spooky, grungy, fun
Right.
Halloween
The
stuff.
Scream era kind of.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And
Exactly.
I remember as a kid, even in the 70s, as a little kid, just there's always the one house, right? There's always the one house and I just remember thinking as a little kid, I'm like, I want to be that one house. Um,
Yes.
and now I'm that one house, and my kids are now both off at college, but we get 400 kids, trick or treaters.
Those
It's
are the days.
But then it's like this responsibility because I convert my garage into a theme every year, and it's got to be different because God knows why.
Oh,
Like I'm afraid of like the 6-year-old criticism of,
right. Like it was the same last year.
right, you're getting a little lazy. Um, but yeah, and then I think when that translates into writing, it is weird because, as a horror writer and as a thriller writer, sometimes I'll write stuff that it's just kind of fun for me. Like it's kind of like, yeah, I'm aware that it's dark, but some people take it as like, oh my God, I couldn't read it or it kept me up. And I'm like, really? Like, I don't think it's, there's literally maybe not even any blood. There's just paranoia, tension, whatever. Do you find yourself being surprised by people's reactions compared to your own?
All the time. Yeah. And I all the time because people will tell me things are really scary or they're really gory or, they're not very scary. And it's never what I think. So I have just stopped trying to anticipate because sometimes, and I'm kind of a chicken, like I don't like super gory, gross
Me
horror stuff.
neither. Yeah.
I like the atmospheric stuff.
Totally. The tone and the mood.
The tone and the mood and the stuff that harkens back to like all of our like lovely horrors of the 90s. So my gauge of horror is probably different than a lot of even my peers, or other writers in the horror space. I like dark and dreary and emotive horror, but I'm not a big blood and guts girl. So with like my Bless Your Heart series, I mean, they own and operate a family funeral parlor, so there is inherent darkness, inherent grossness because of the literally the nature of the business. But I don't really think it's scary, but sometimes readers do. So I never know
Yeah,
anymore.
everyone's got their trigger because there's definitely some things that I won't read or watch. Like I don't watch horror unless it's like I love like a Sixth Sense kind of like
Mhm.
that kind of movie where it's not over the top, but it's more cerebral and it's more moody and atmospheric. And there's certainly some scenes that I can write that I wouldn't be able to read if somebody else wrote it. But you lose perspective on that a little bit. Do you have your editors ever feeling like they're reining you in or anything?
Oh, it's interesting because my editor at St. Martin's and I think we see horror differently, because she comes from the thriller crime side and I come from the monster creature side. So,
Interesting.
um,
So she's more rooted in realism and grit,
yes, procedural rules, like these things.
like
And
Seven kind of a thing.
yeah, and I'm not like I'm very much the other way. So it's a really interesting relationship sometimes when like I'm pushing into a different side of horror and she's not coming with me, or she's pushing me one way and I'm not going another. But then I have other editors, like my editor at Gallery is always encouraging me to be scarier. So it depends on who I'm talking to and the project, but I definitely think it's definitely very give and take depending on which editor I'm working with.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like literally today, I was looking at a comment. I'm going through some editorial notes on what's coming out next year, and one of the comments is about one of the characters, and she just kind of wants him developed a little bit more. He's a pretty secondary character, but so totally makes sense. And then she had this comment. She's like, there's room if you want to make him scarier, if you feel like that's the right direction. And I'm immediately like, should he be scarier? Like, is that what you're saying? Is that what you want? Like, I don't know. And I kind
Yeah.
of feel like I don't think that's who he is because but now I feel like I have to ask her because maybe that's, maybe when they say they want scarier out of you, they just recognize that's what you're really good at. And that's what your readers want, even if you're not necessarily feeling it for that character.
Yeah, and I tend to be one of the type that has really strong feelings about my characters, especially in the Bless Your Heart series, because most of the women in that family are based off of my own family members.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm
So
like,
you're
no,
connected.
that's not what's going to happen. And I tend to be very experimental or not experimental, experiential or very method in that way. Like I get really into the headspace, but then sometimes my characters surprise me and they do what they want to do anyway, regardless of what me or my editor says. Um,
So when that happens, because I'm always curious about this because it's true, right? Because you're writing something, and I think it also makes a difference if you're plotting or pantsing, but they take a different turn. And is that your subconscious just kind of almost hearing your editorial notes in your head, or a sense of like, you know, structurally it makes more sense if they were doing this instead? Or is it truly just like this character is literally like not letting me do anything but this with them?
gosh, I think it probably depends on the character and the project. Like, and some of mine are so different. Like the Bless Your Heart series is all third person multi POV.
Right.
So there's a lot more planning that goes into something like that, right? Because you have to make sure all these arcs and storylines work together and that the characters kind of all move incrementally through
Right.
the story at the same pace. Whereas my new book that's coming out in February, it's called Dollface. It's a suburban slasher. It's single POV.
Right.
So she has a little bit more, I think, to say about her own journey. And writing that book took me maybe 3 times all the way through till I really felt that the character behaved authentically with the character. It was kind of this really strange experience. And now I'm writing in multi POV, present tense, closer third. And so it's a very different. I've noticed that the shifting from past to present tense changes a lot of how I plan and plot.
Totally.
Um, it's just this really interesting experience, like when you're going through and working on different projects, seeing how things flow and click very
And seeing what
uniquely.
you're naturally kind of best at. I'm best at single POV, first person present tense, because I think that's a very emotional voice to work with, and they're on the screen the entire time, so you really have to be empathetic and mentally in sync with them. But
Yep.
it's also very breathless when you do that because like you're just your staccato bursts of thoughts, you know.
Yes.
Multi POV third person, yeah, that's I look at that and I'm like, I could do that. It probably wouldn't be great from me because that is a lot of planning, to your point, and it's a
It's a
little bit
lot.
more distant because you're not spending as much time with any one character.
Yeah, and I think I like the bless your heart, like I mentioned, is third person and it's past tense. And
Yeah.
I don't think I can go back. When I started writing Dollface, a friend of mine said, write present, you're writing a slasher, like put us in the scene a little bit, be closer, closer, closer. And now I can't go back. There's no way I can go back to past tense. So when I get around to working on that series, the next book, I'm going to have to like figure it out all over
I
because I
know
love the
it's
clippiness of the present.
you can because you can there's something first of all I do think you have to as an author I think you have to have a natural deep well of empathy to write that well because you are in that person's headspace but it gives you so much creative freedom for incomplete sentences, you know, hot reactions, just because you're in their mind. And there's something so organic about it that, yeah, I don't think I could do a second POV that was like a 15 to 20% POV, third person, past tense, you know, but even doing that, like you just screw up all the time.
Yeah, yeah, if I had a nickel for every time I screwed up my POV, I
Yeah.
think I'd be a rich woman. But I love it. The project I'm working on right now is multi POV and still present, but I still have one, unlike the Evans world and Bless Your Heart, everybody kind of had an equal voice. And
Yeah.
now I have a multi POV cast, but I have one, dominant
Yeah.
narrator.
Yeah.
So I feel very attached to her, where I'm still
Right.
feel like I'm really feeling out the rest of the characters. And I'm only 20,000 words in, right? So plenty of time to go back and toss it in the
Totally.
garbage and start
And
over.
yeah, yeah, totally. And I think the one thing that's hard with first person present tense single point of view is you do this. So I don't write series; they're all standalones, and it's hard for them not to sound like each other because it's such a personal style. And whether it's man, woman, whomever, you know, they sound like that character in a way. I mean, you can make them sound a little bit different, but that is a risk, I think, sometimes. Or maybe that's your brand. Maybe that's what people come to
Right. I think you got to
expect.
spin that, right? That's it. It's not, repeating yourself over and over. It's your brand. It's what your
Right.
readers want to read. Like I try to spin it. Yeah, I think I am noticing that as I'm working on new stuff. As when, like I mentioned, when I was working or am working on the Bless Your Heart stuff, I know those women. I know their voices because they were real people, so they exist very distinctly in my
Yeah,
head.
that's true.
But with new projects that are just all dreams up, yeah, sometimes I have to make sure that I'm not, pulling a Mary Sue, or I'm not, just making the same character over and over and over, and making sure that they're very dynamic individual voices, but still also my voice as the
Yeah.
author. So yeah, it's an interesting an interesting bout of voices in the head at all times, right? So
So with Dollface, your upcoming book, going to this 90s slasher, which I love because I can you say 90s slasher and that's all somebody needs to hear. They get it, right? There's it's going the first thing I think is that it's going to be funny. There's going to be probably profound elements of humor in it as well because that was just kind of the thing. But it's also exceptionally gritty and dark for that kind of era. And you say you don't write a lot of that. So was this maybe more violent than what you're used to writing?
I don't know. I gave it to our mutual publicist, and she came back and she said, "This is so much darker than your other stuff." And I went, "Really?" Because to me, it feels like you mentioned, like more humorous. There's those profound moments of humor and kind of over the top, and yeah. So I was really surprised to hear it's darker and scarier than your other stuff. I'm like, my other stuff had like undead monsters eating people. Over here, I just have some sassy women like offing each other. I
But
don't
they're
understand.
monsters, and I think somebody can detach from a monster
That's
easier.
probably very true for breeders. Not necessarily for me. It's the opposite. Like because monsters are unpredictable. They don't work by the same set of logic or emotions that a person would, no matter who that person is, right? People tend to act in more predictable ways, even if the prediction is the unpredictableness of their behavior, whereas a monster is going to do what a monster is going to do. So I don't know. So, but I think Dollface is definitely meaner. I'll use that word. I think it's meaner
Yeah.
because these are, attacks, a series of gruesome mutilations and killings that are intentional, that are planned, that are meditated. So it's different than, just a hungry zombie rolling out of its grave and looking for dinner.
Right, right. And it, even with like a 90s slasher where you're maybe being dark, but also a little tongue in cheek, you still have to kind of keep grounded, right, to the emotion of it all. Like, cause like this is, in my world, this is all real and there are consequences of these actions, and these brutal killings have connections to other people. And is that hard for you to write at all, to like make sure that it's also not necessarily being respectful, but not just being dismissive once there's a killing?
No, I love consequences.
Yeah, me
And
too.
I think every action has a consequence. And I see, a lot of times I feel like we miss the consequences in fiction. Like things just work out or things just continue moving, or we don't get to really embrace that moment in the narrative or in the story. So I'm very big on consequences and the results of bad behavior, and or how things circle back around. And I definitely indulge in that, I think,
I
a little
think
bit
that's
because I
great. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I want it to be there because I don't think you can grow out of a situation if you don't move through the consequences of the reality of it. So as you can tell, I was a very fun mom and I'm a very easy professor. Like there are consequences.
Well, it's a refreshing take because I think a lot of people say that, but when you look at a lot of books out there, when you see what's on Netflix, and it's such a pet peeve of mine. It's like, all right, this dude just got shot in the knee and he's still running, or whatever it is. You're just things just work out. You're like, no, they don't work out. They would have gone to prison for a long time for what they just did.
Right. Or yeah, they're not going to keep moving. And I think, and horror is a really nice place to lean into those consequences and to really, put them on the page because those give the genesis from which to continue going, right? So if you're in Walking Dead and you get a bite taken out of you, there is no coming back. This
Right.
consequence is going to follow through. And yeah, I like that in my horror.
Yeah.
Or in my reading, whether I'm reading or writing, I like to see the realism of things impacting. I don't want to get shot and see the person continue running down the road. Like
Right.
that's not how blood loss works.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a great book called On Writing Violence, and it's written by an ex-prison warden. And it's just a physiological book about this is what happens when you get punched in the face. This was what happens in your brain. And it's because I love being respectful of the human anatomy and scenes of violence, because it's just this. And what's great is if you if your books are moody and atmospheric and there's the pervasive threat of violence, but not actually a lot of violence, when the violence comes, you have such a stage for it to be so meaningful and so visceral and consequential. And that's when I'm like, I've got to get this right. If somebody is getting stabbed, it's we are going to understand exactly how it happens.
I, yes, I love that. That's wonderful. And because to me, it speaks to just my research academic method brain. Writing the Bless Your Heart series, these women own and operate a family funeral parlor. They have to deal with the very stark realities of things like death and decomposition and the state that bodies might come into when they're interred into the morgue. So I spent a phenomenal amount of time learning from morticians and
Right.
funeral directors.
You didn't just
Um,
watch 6 Feet Under and say, okay, I get it.
I have
Although I love
never
that
watched
series. Oh my God, I love that series.
I have never watched it, although I did interview its director, Brian Fuller, a few years
Oh,
ago. And I felt like such a jerk to be like, nope, never seen it. And frankly, not going to watch it because I am writing a series based
right.
here and I don't want anything accidentally
I
to infiltrate.
totally get that.
But, now as a result, I feel fairly confident that I could probably work in a funeral home just
Right.
fine.
Right. Or
I
at least
have an
intern.
account. Oh, I could at least, yeah, I could intern. I have an account with some medical supply companies because I needed to know how these tools worked. If I'm going to use them as instruments in the business and as potentially weapons for my characters, I need to know how
Wow.
they work. So I bought
Wow.
trocars and other weird things. And
Plus Halloween decorations now.
They pull double duty, like the anatomical skeleton that I bought from a doctor supply company, not, Spirit Halloween. Just
Right.
because if a bone breaks, I want to know who else is nearby to, to be impacted. So,
Right, right.
um,
So I know you mentioned earlier, and I saw on your site that you started with some romance. Do you still do any of that, or
I do. I love it. I can't help myself.
yeah?
And I'm actually reconvening with an actress who was in a previous project that I did, working on a new script. So sometimes, I just, it's all about balance, right? So
Yeah.
weirdly enough, when we hit October, like my sweet side comes out. It's such a weird
Huh.
thing. Everyone delves into spooky season, and meanwhile, I'm like watching Bake Off and like getting
Right.
ready for the
Well,
sweet
that's
parts
very
of the stuff.
fall-ish too, as well. I mean, I definitely get that, and it's funny. I'm totally guessing here, but I imagine you've gotten the question more than once about like, how are you able to write horror and romance? I totally get it. Like it's just like I like to write stories, and I like my stories to be about a mood, and this is the mood I was in.
Yeah, and I always give the same line. I always say that both horror and romance are genres of hope, right?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
horror, you're hoping to survive, to overcome, to fight back, to persist, whatever. In romance, you're hoping to fall in love, hoping for a happy ending. I mean, and frankly, in horror, if as the protagonist, you're probably hoping for a happy ending too, because
Right.
the unhappy ending would
Right.
be the end of you. So it's still all built around, like you said, mood.
Right. And they're both very emotion forward. I think thrillers, the better thrillers, I think, are very emotion forward too, because that's how you attach to the character, right?
Right.
You attach because you care about what happens to them, whether you like them or not, because you can share some kind of emotional connection with them, and I think that's true definitely for horror and romance for sure.
Yeah, you got to bond with your protagonist and inside the world that they're living in. Otherwise, we'd all be writing literary fiction and bored to tears, right?
Do you, in terms of, networking, going to conferences, things like that, do you do those? And B, do you do like, oh, I'm going to go to, Horror Writers Conference and, RWE's conference?
This year has been definitely my biggest kickoff year in terms of events. I have done so many.
Mhm.
And now I'm booking out all the way through August of next year already. So, lots of events. And I love the literary festivals like the Columbus Book Fest that we were both at, and South Dakota Book Fest coming up next month. I love those big festivals that are multi-genre festivals when you just
Right.
have this influx of book lovers. It doesn't matter, the genre as so much as if you're there for the passion of reading and writing. But I love the horror cons too. Like I just came back from Dark Ink up in Doylestown, Pennsylvania with Doylestown
Oh,
Bookshop last month, and it was the coolest day ever. I had so much fun. Plus, when you're at the genre cons, you get to see your friends, right? Your
totally.
peers or the same readers who travel. Like that's kind of amazing.
It's amazing the bookstagrammers, and you're like, and I just feel like the community, whatever your community is, it's so important and easily overlooked if you're not paying attention. But I mean, 2.5 decades of doing this, I'm like, I've got such great friends, and I'm so glad that I make the effort to like go to the conferences and spend time with my friends. And now I have this people I can whose shoulder I can cry on if I'm confused or scared or whatever. And I don't know, it's amazing.
No, and the conversations that come out of that are so great. I mean, even at like Columbus Book Fest, I did panels with peers. I met writers who I know their names, but not their faces, so it was great to meet and great to see readers. And then, we sat down in the little cafe in the bottom
Right.
floor of the main
Yeah.
library branch and just like talked and
Yeah.
just caught up with friends, caught up with life, talked about the business, talked about everything that's going on in publishing and horror fiction and publishing. And it's so rejuvenating. I mean, I came home and then banged out 20,000 words of a new book, right? Because
Yeah.
for me, it's a huge motivation tool. I'm such an introvert. I don't
Yeah.
like leaving my house, even much to my husband's chagrin. He's like, "Can we please go to the grocery store?" And I'm like, "Why? There's Instacart. I don't have to leave." I teach from home. Everything can be delivered to the house, and So it's very polar. I'm either sitting at home in my cave,
Yeah.
writing and reading and avoiding humans, or I'm at these huge big book conventions just trying to soak it all up like a sponge.
I know, I know. I've gotten to the point where I try to do now is if I'm going to a major conference, I try to find one or two people and just see, hey, can we sit down for a coffee for an hour, just one on one, and just talk rather than like you're at a reception and you're spending 2 minutes with everyone, or you're going out to a massive dinner with 20 people. I'm like, let's just catch up and be friends for an hour, because that's a little bit more meaningful, I think, if you're able to do that. Everyone's so busy.
Everyone's so busy, but it's so much fun. I mean, I mentioned Dark Ink last month, and it was crazy. We had this bookstore was packed. We had panels, and so I'm sitting at a book signing table and on a panel with peers and friends and readers, and everything's happening so fast and so fast and so fast, and it doesn't feel like you're meaningfully connecting with really anyone because it's just smile and nod and keep
Right,
going.
right.
But they had an after hours event in this little, definitely haunted basement bar. And we got to just sit there
Perfect.
and have a drink, eat a pizza, have a conversation. And that was just as awesome as the whole day had been. And so I
Oh,
love
I
finding those
love
one
it.
on ones and, don't have to, the light switch can turn off. I'm not there to speak about something. I don't
Right.
have to worry about spelling my name right, which is an actual problem for me. And we can just sit down and have a soda or glass of wine or beer
Yeah,
or whatever and just talk.
that's awesome.
um
That's awesome.
Good stuff. That's where the good stuff is for sure, I think.
Well, Lindy, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, we're going to do the storytelling portion of the show, which you just learned earlier is a thing. Um, so,
It's like, surprise, we're doing
surprise.
improv.
It's all yes and. So I've selected three books at random from my bookshelf. You're going to choose one of those books. We're going to choose a random sentence from a random page. I'm going to read that sentence, and that'll be the first sentence in like I said, like a 2 minute long short story. So I'll read that sentence. You give me the next sentence or two, whatever pops in your head. I'll do a sentence or two, and when it gets really god awful, I'll call it.
This is going to go bad so fast. Okay, let's do it.
You'd be surprised. I've got David Baldacci's The Sixth Man, SF Kosa's The Night We Burn, and Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects. So choose one of those.
Is it a cheat to go with the book I've read?
Sharp
But
Objects?
yeah.
I'm
Yes.
like, you seem like a Sharp Objects kind of person.
You seem like a sharp
We
objects
could do
kind of
that.
girl. Yeah, sure.
So I didn't realize how short this book was.
It's
250.
beautifully short. It's like
Yeah.
less than 70,000 words. I think it's so crisp and slicey. I love that book.
Slicey, that's a good word. So give me a page between 1 and 252.
Oh my God. 131.
Okay, I'm going to quickly look at page 131 and see if there's. Um,
Is it blank? Did I get lucky?
no, you didn't get lucky. So I've got two characters, Tish and Angie. That's all you need to know when I read this sentence. Tish was sobbing when Angie turned the lights on.
Okay, my job is to next line it, right?
Yeah.
Tisha sobbing when Angie turns the lights on. Did you see it? Where did it go? Let's do some dialogue.
Tish turned her head, but her vision was strained by the tears. She didn't know what she saw, if she saw anything at all. But something had been there. I'm bleeding, she said. Did I steal that from you?
No, no, I'm just really bad at this. I would fail miserably on whose line? Instant death. I am bleeding. Okay.
So we're in Tish's POV, and she's the one who's bleeding.
Oh my God, I suck so bad. That's not the line.
That could be the line.
Could be the line. It could be. I think it's still in here. That's it. That's all I got. I am not good at this, Carter.
All right, I'll do one more line. Tish looked around for a half swivel of her head before the lights went out. The sudden darkness weighed heavily and all she could smell was sulfur. I don't know. We'll call it there.
I'm like sweating.
I told you it was a shit show.
I'm just like, I don't know words. I'm instant lockdown.
It's funny. Maureen Johnson, I did it with her, and we started, and she's like, she froze, and she's like, I can't do this unless my fingers are literally moving on the keyboard. And I'm like, that's so interesting. Like, everyone's totally different. Some people just like, oh my God, did you prepare for this because you have this beautiful paragraph? And other people are like, and then he died.
That's me. I'm like, and then the story ended and everyone lived awfully. And it's kind of funny because as you were giving your lines, I was like hunting for my pen, like, or a pencil. And I write exclusively
So funny, yeah.
in these like Sharpie fine tipped pens. If it's not this, I can't handle it. I have the weirdest
do you handwrite
OCD
your
with it.
manuscripts?
I do a lot of handwriting.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
My drafts, my outlines, everything is always handwritten.
Oh my God.
Because I feel like it's like a learning tick. Like I don't
Yeah,
know what I'm writing unless I physically can write it. So I
yeah,
always write my outlines. I don't usually write like full prose because then I have the world's most atrocious handwriting.
yeah.
But I definitely like make my beat sheets by hand and then I build from there.
Oh my
So yeah,
goodness.
I can't do this game without a pen apparently.
Here's a quick sneak peek at my dog staring out the window.
Oh.
She just like stands there and puts her head and looks out the window.
That seems fine. Mine left. So he took off. He noticed the door was shut and he can't handle if the door is shut. So I don't
Well,
know.
Lindy, it was great finally connecting with you. And yeah, maybe we'll be at an event together and be able to have one of those conversations in person next year.
Hey, that sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to it already.
Thanks for your time today. Take care.
Of course, you too. Bye.
Bye. All right, that is it. That is my conversation with Lindy Ryan. That was a good one. Craft heavy, which I love. I love talking craft with other writers. You can check out all of her books and everything you want to know about her at lindyryanwrites.com. And you can hop on over to carterwilson.com to buy my books, check out my newsletter, look at other episodes of this podcast, amongst other things. And be sure to check out unboundwriter.com if you are an aspiring writer or even an established writer looking for some additional edge. I do one-on-one coaching. I have online classes and retreats and workshops. So that's all at unboundwriter.com. That's it. That is it for this episode of Making It Up. Another one out next week. Thanks as always for watching and or listening. Take care.